Hello to all. Today we will discuss meristematic tissue from the plant anatomy unit. Now this meristematic tissue, from where the term meristematic tissue is coming. Actually there is a word known as meristose. From the meristose, meristem word was created. From the word meristose, meristem word was created, and meristem means divisible. Meristem means divisible. Means it has dividing capacity. It has dividing capacity. It has dividing capacity. This term meristem was first of all given by a scientist whose name was Nagel. Alright. Now what happens? We know very well that in a plant, after post-fertilization, what are the post-fertilization changes in a plant? That the zygote is converted into embryo. Zygote is converted into embryo. All cells of embryo are dividing. All cells of embryo are dividing. Now when embryo forms new plant, now all the cells of embryo are dividing, means they are having meristematic cells. We are talking about the plant now. We are talking about the plant. That in a plant, what are the post-fertilization changes? That because of the fertilization, zygote was formed, and zygote forms the embryo. Now all the cells of embryo are dividing, means they have meristematic cell. But when embryo forms a new plant, what happens? That the meristematic cells convert into permanent cells, which forms plant body, But remember this thing. This is very important. What we want to discuss here is that, but in plant there are some regions, left where active dividing cells are found. But in a plant, means in the entire plant, no cells will divide. But there are some regions left where active dividing cells are found, called meristematic cells. But in plants, there are some regions left where active dividing cells are found, called as meristematic cells. These regions are root and shoot apices. These regions are root and shoot apices, means apex. There are some regions in the plant known as the root and the shoot apexes where the meristematic cells are found, and these meristematic cells found at the apex are having the capacity to divide. We say that plants are having unlimited plants, we say that plants are having unlimited growth throughout the life. Throughout the life. This is the chief difference between the plant and the animal, that plants are having unlimited growth throughout the life. This capacity is because of meristematic tissue. This capacity is because of meristematic tissue whose cells continuously divide. Lifelong. Animals are having a limited growth. Their growth is restricted after a particular period, but this is not the case in the case of the plants. Plants show, or they are having unlimited growth throughout the life. This capacity is because of the meristematic tissue whose cells are always in the mode of continuous division. Clear? Now, the meristematic tissue found at apex is responsible for the growth in plants. The meristematic tissue found at the apex is primarily responsible for growth in plants. Are you getting? The meristematic tissue which is found at the apex, say if this is the apex, alright, then at this apex meristematic tissue is found and it is responsible for the growth in plants. Right? Now, which type of the growth? So in plants there are two types of the growth. That is known as the primary growth, which occur in the beginning, and the growth which occur later on. Is called as the secondary growth. So what I want to say here, that the meristematic tissue is responsible for the primary growth in plants. Meristematic tissue is responsible for primary growth in plants, and because of the primary growth, you must know that plant increases in length, and because of the secondary growth, plant increases in width. So it is primarily responsible for the primary growth in the plants. Is it clear? So what we can conclude that meristematic tissue have cells which can divide lifelong. Meristematic tissue have cells which can divide lifelong, means the cells of this tissue continuously the cells of this tissue are continuously showing cell cycle, and you know very well that in cell cycle the cell will divide. The cells of this tissue continuously showing the cell cycle, so we can say that meristematic tissue have cells which can divide lifelong. And number two, cells of meristematic tissue are immature. Basically the cells of the permanent tissue become mature, but these cells are immature, and meristematic tissue is a undifferentiated tissue. Why? Because its cells can divide. Once the cell gets differentiated, its power of division is lost, but the cells of the meristematic tissue always remain in undifferentiated stage, and because of which they are having the power of division lifelong. Is it clear? Now, who gave the term meristem? So meristem term was given by Nageli, and there are few characteristic features. Of this tissue which make it unique from the other tissues. Number one is cells of this tissue are living. Cells of this tissue are living. Number two, cells are surrounded by thin cell walls made of cellulose. Cells are surrounded by thin cell walls which are made up of cellulose. They only have primary cell walls. Secondary cell wall is absent in them. Secondary cell wall is absent in them. Are you getting? Again I am repeating, the cells are living. Cells are surrounded by thin cell walls which are made up of cellulose. They have primary cell walls but they do not have secondary cell walls. Cells may be oval, spherical or rectangular in shape. Cells may be oval, spherical or rectangular in shape, but remember this thing, that all the cells are isodiametric. Means all the cells have same diameter. Cells are isodiametric means all cells are of same diameter, means they are equal in size. Cells are isodiametric. Now the nucleus is very much clear, means it is prominent. Nucleus is very much clear, means the cells are having a clear cut nucleus, a prominent nucleus. Dense cytoplasm is present. Dense cytoplasm is present in them. They are having rich cytoplasm. Alright. Ergistic or secretory substances. Basically they are non-living substances. Are absent in this tissue. Non-living substances are absent in this tissue. Now cells are compactly packed, means they are tightly packed and intercellular spaces are absent. Cells are compactly packed, that is, in them intercellular spaces are absent. Intercellular spaces are absent. Vacuoles are absent in cells. Vacuoles are absent in the meristematic cells. If present, if present, they are very much small. Food is not stored in this tissue. Food is not stored in this tissue. Mitochondria and endoplasmic reticulum are less developed. Mitochondria and endoplasmic reticulum are less developed. Plastids in them are present, very very important, in form of proplastids. What are proplastids, beta? Precursor of plastids. From which plastids are formed? Precursor of plastids. Plastids in them are present in the form of proplastid. Mitochondria and ER are less developed. Food is not stored. Vacuoles are absent, but if present, very small. Cells are compactly packed in them. Intercellular space is absent. Ergistic or non-living substances or secretory substances are absent in this tissue. Dense cytoplasm is present. Nucleus is very much prominent and clear. Cells are isodiametric. They are thin-walled, made up of cellulose, and primary cell wall is only found. Secondary cell wall is not found. Cells are isodiametric. Shape may be oval, rectangular, or spherical, and they are always in the active mode of division. They are immature cells. They are undifferentiated cells. Okay. So next few points more. Now cells are connected. The cells are connected by each other. The adjacent cells are connected by plasmodesmatal connections. Adjacent cells are connected to each other by plasmodesmatal connections. Adjacent cells are connected to each other. By plasmodesmatal connection. You know what are plasmodesmatal connections? These are plasmodesmatas are found in the cell wall, and plasmodesmatas are meant for the exchange of the cytoplasm between the two cells. The cytoplasm of two cells is in contact with each other with the help of these connections. Okay. So these are some important features of the meristematic tissue. Now one more feature which is very very important, that entire plant can be affected by virus infection, but the apex of the plant where meristematic tissue is found is never infected by virus, as the cells of this tissue are always actively dividing, and so they do not allow virus infection. Are you getting? Entire plant can be affected by the virus infection, but the apex of the plant where the meristematic tissue is found is never infected by the virus. Why? Because the cells at the apex have meristematic tissue, I can say that at the apex meristematic tissue is found, and the cells of this tissue are always actively dividing, and say they do not allow virus infection. It means, say for if in nature, if the entire plant is infected by virus, but if we want to save that species or the plant, then from the growth apices we can take the meristematic cells, and through the tissue culture experiments we can again raise a new plant from it, and that plant which will be raised from that cells will be entirely virus free. Okay, so this is also important. One more thing I want to tell you for the meristematic tissue is that cells of meristematic tissue are metabolically very much active, and that's why they can divide lifelong, So this is the importance of the meristematic tissue, that it divides lifelong and is responsible for the continuous growth in the case of the plants. The big difference between the plant and the animal is that in animals the growth is restricted at a particular time, but in the case of the plants the growth occurs unlimited, though it is not visible, but still continuously plants show growth just because of the meristematic tissue. So this tissue is very important for the plant, particularly for the growth purpose. Okay, so today we have discussed the meristematic tissue. Earlier we have given the outline sketch of the tissues, and in the next video I will be discussing about the classification of the meristematic tissue in detail. So keep watching. Thanks a lot.